Welcome to this year's 2022 edition of the Atlanta Falcons Think Tank. Hey, I'm Toby D, and you already know. If we think about it, we gonna talk about it. And boy, do we have some stuff to talk about today. But before we start talking about that, let's talk about and catch up on some of the news that has transpired for the Atlanta Falcons just recently. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is, you know, the Atlanta Falcons have the number 8 pick. That has already been decided. But there is rumblings that, hey, the Falcons could definitely take a wide receiver at number 8. Now, I know some people are not happy to hear anything like that, especially after we took an offensive player at number 4 in Kyle Pitts in 2021 to come back and take a wide receiver at number 8. Now, me personally, I'm just going to tell you, Jameson Williams is the only guy I can see at number 8. 19.9 yards per catch. The most explosive guy in this draft. Now, I know he is hurt with a torn ACL. But guys, you know as well as I know, with the way technology is these days, these guys are coming back off torn ACLs like it is nothing. And they are now ready to go and get going for their team. And I do believe that Jameson Williams will be ready to go for his team when the time comes. I mean, you saw guys like Jalen Waddle. Now, even though Jalen Waddle's experience is a little different, he hurt his kind of like in the middle of the season last year, and he was ready to come back for the season because he didn't do the combine or anything like that, and he was ready. And Jameson Williams hurt his this year, early this year in the championship game, Alabama and Georgia. Shout out to Georgia, by the way. You see, I got my championship Georgia Bulldog shirt on. Go Dogs. But he did get hurt, and we'll have to see how he progresses going on. But that's the only guy, really, guys, I would take. Falcons probably can't afford to wait on him to heal, though, in order to be able to get him at number 8. Now, names have been thrown around. Treylon Burks. A lot of people like Arkansas's Treylon Burks. Now, he is my 3rd ranked wide receiver in this draft. Yes, I have Ohio State wide receiver Garrett Wilson at number 2, Jahan Dobson at number 4, and Drake London from USC at number 5. And that's how I'm rolling with my wide receivers going into the Senior Bowl, all the bowl games, and going into the combine when it comes up March 1st through the 7th. And that's how I'm going to do it. But now you got another news with, we saw Calvin Ridley, again, liking tweets he probably shouldn't like. And it's out there in the public. He liked a recent tweet about someone talking about him going possibly to the Miami Dolphins, or they wish he could go to the Miami Dolphins. And then he unlikes the tweet. Too late, it's already out there. But listen, I'll say this much about Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, if you feel like you need to go to another team to reset yourself mentally, then I hope the Atlanta Falcons honor that and are able to move a little bit faster, since you did decide to take a step back right before we played the Carolina Panthers. It got released about you needing to take a mental break from the game. And so hopefully the Falcons hit the ground running from that point on up until this point and getting things going a little bit faster, especially after the season ends with the Super Bowl, and they be able to find someone, a trade partner, a little faster to be able to take you off our hands, and we can get that money back that we picked up on your 5th-year option of like 11.1 or 11.2 million from you. But we'll see how that goes. The other news was Mack asked for a release from the Atlanta Falcons. And, you know, listen, that is great that the Atlanta Falcons honored it, allowed him out of his contract. It would have been nice to see what he could do, especially when we put a 2nd-round tender on Mack, but he got hurt, he got injured, and was unable to play for the season. And let's see where he ends up at. But that shouldn't stop us from what I am wanting to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, I know a lot of you are talking about, hey, we need a defense. We need a defense. We need pass rushers. We had 18 sacks, and that is not going to work for the Atlanta Falcons. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you all very well know, over the years, what has been the Atlanta Falcons' bread and butter? Yes, if you called it, it has been our offense. And I don't see any reason why we should change that right now, especially since that is the biggest thing that the Atlanta Falcons, Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith, have the blueprint for, and how to rebuild this offense up to par to where it is able to hang with some of these teams that are out there. And unfortunately, we were not able to do it in 2021. Now, there were spurts where we looked like an unstoppable offense. We now know what type of offense we want. the schemes we want to run, we need someone like a Cordarrelle Patterson. That is for sure. If we're able to draft a guy like James Cooks out of the Georgia Bulldogs, then I will be all for it because he is a player similar to a Cordarrelle Patterson if Cordarrelle Patterson has priced himself out of the Atlanta Falcons jersey, although he has been heavily campaigning that he wants to come back to the Atlanta Falcons because we have unlocked his talents and have been able to show the world what we can do with a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson. But we shall see how that plays out. But we need to get this offense back to where it once was, or at least a semblance of being able to score more points than what we scored down the stretch in these games once teams really figured out how to slow us down, starting with Cordarrelle Patterson. Now, shout out to Russell Gage. The guy tried to hold it down after Calvin Ridley was gone. Him and Matt Ryan really built a rapport together for him to be that number one guy. But let's face it, he's not a number one wide receiver. At anything best, for me, he's a slot guy, ladies and gentlemen. So that would mean we're going to need a number one, number two, and if we decide to bring Russell Gage back, he's going to be our slot guy where I believe he's most comfortable, and that is where he belongs. He doesn't need all that pressure on him, and he can definitely wreak havoc with guys. He'll be a little bit more closer to Kyle Pitts on certain sides of the field at the same time and being able to really wreak havoc from the slot position. We got to get the offense right. That offensive line has to get right. And I know a lot of us are talking about we don't want to waste more capital, draft capital on offensive linemen. But ladies and gentlemen, this draft right here, I think has some of the most talented tackles, guards, and centers in this draft. And to me, there is no reason why one of these or two of these guys do not fall in the crosshairs of the Atlanta Falcons BPA philosophy and what they want to do as far as best player available when they're drafting guys this season. I believe that there's an opportunity there to be able to draft some guys to be able to help out on this offensive line. You're going to have to get a center. This is no unknown secret. You cannot convince me after what I saw, and I didn't believe it going into the season, and I still am not convinced that Matt Hennessy is going to be a guy that is still going to be in front of Matt Ryan or whoever, since Arthur Smith denied all comments from Chris Mortensen saying that he went in and talked to Terry Fontenot and Arthur Blank that Matt Ryan was his guy. You're not going to be able to sit here and tell me and convince me that Matt Hennessy is going to be the guy in front of any quarterback that you're going to have, whether it's Matt Ryan or somebody else in this draft for the Atlanta Falcons, because it is not going to work. Left guard definitely has to change. Jalen Mayfield, much respect, put out a tweet saying everybody in that building knows what he's done. He knows what he's done, and he's not worrying about what anybody else says, that he sees the improvements. Shout out to you. Hey, you got to believe it, because if you don't, nobody else will. But unfortunately for Jalen Mayfield, the film shows something very different than what he is saying. Right tackle. That is no unknown secret either. It's got to change. Caleb McGarry wasn't the guy when we drafted him in 2019, and he's still not the guy right now to be able to deal with a lot of these speed rushes that he's going to have to deal with, especially in 2022. Have you guys looked at the schedule? Yeah, we don't know when we're playing the guys, but it's some tough pass rushers that are on that schedule right now that can really hurt the Atlanta Falcons if Caleb McGarry is still manning down that right side at right tackle. Y'all got to do something about it, especially at center. Now, Jensen is the guy that I would love for the Atlanta Falcons to have. And I said this before, usually the Atlanta Falcons have signed people in free agency that either guys on the coaching staff or the front office have had a connection with. And Jensen is definitely someone that has a connection with, I believe, two guys that are in that building that work with Terry Fontenot, Dwayne Jones and Anthony Robinson, because both of them at one point in time did help over there in Baltimore at one point in time. So they know this guy when he was drafted to the Baltimore Ravens. And a lot of people talking about Ben Jones. Hey, he would be a perfect fit for the Atlanta Falcons. He knows the scheme. He definitely will be able to man it down at least for 3 or 4 years for the Atlanta Falcons. And we can draft someone to be learning. Even we still got Drew Dalman, who I think has some potential to be a future center for the Atlanta Falcons, but needs time to develop in that guy. You need to put Jalen Mayfield back over at right tackle, but that experiment for left guard is over. The year of evaluation is over. You got to establish your your culture. You know what you want your culture to be. Now you got to weed out those guys that don't want to be here. I want to read some stats right quick when I'm talking about this offense of the Atlanta Falcons. 31st in offensive plays called. That was something that Arthur Smith brought up when he evaded the question about the 18 sacks from the Atlanta Falcons that was asked by beat writer D. Orlando Ledbetter. Hey, you can't run the football, number one, Arthur Smith, you know this. You can't run the football, you can't run the clock. Unfortunately, the other team gets the ball and they are able to run football and run clock. And they can put up points at the same time where you're unable to do any of those things. So you got to be able to run the football for the Atlanta Falcons. And I don't know who you're going to get, but there are some guys that are capable in this draft that are probably better than what was in the last year's draft and are bigger guys that you favor in this draft. Brian Robinson, hint, hint. It's one of the guys I would love for the Atlanta Falcons to be able to pull off and draft. 31st in fourth down efficiency. 31st in goal-to-goal conversions. 26th in red zone conversions. Now, might I mind you guys, these stats was right after the San Francisco 49ers game. We played San Francisco 49ers on December 19th. Mike Conti put these stats out on December 20th. If I'm not mistaken, publicly released this post on Twitter about this. Now, 31st in red zone conversion. This is something that Arthur Smith was supposed to be good at coming here. But when you don't have the offensive line and you don't have enough weapons, you're not going to be able to score enough points in the red zone. When you don't have the offensive line and you don't have running backs capable of punching it in at 1 to go, then you're not going to score a lot of points as well. So you got to take care of this. And I believe the Atlanta Falcons are much closer to building an offense the way that it needs to be to at least make it a little bit more up to par to what we need it to be playing the schedule that we have than they are building the defense. And I think the defense is trending in the right direction. Opportunistic, that is where they are right now. You get the backfield and built right because Dean Pease is a guy who builds from the back to the front, ladies and gentlemen. He's not a front to the back. That's how he builds. So now we know what we want to do on the back end. We need cornerbacks that can be able to help that. Now, I've been working on the big board, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there's no way in my mind that I'm believing that Sauce Gardner is not a top 10 pick. This guy is a top 10 pick after watching him, and he deserves to be up in there with Derek Stingley Jr. And we could get one of those guys at top 10 if they should fall there to the Atlanta Falcons. And it's very possible one of those corners could fall. Could you imagine having one of those guys on the opposite side of A.J. Terrell? Oh, man, you talking about really building a formidable group, especially if you bring Isaiah Oliver back after injury on a one-year deal, and you got the new stars, Richie Grant and Jalen Hawkins, manning the backside. I think that would be a formidable secondary that you can work with, and you get you some good complementary pieces. They don't have to be superstars, but they got to be capable of being able to have high motor and high effort to get to the quarterback after you have a secondary like that is going to be able to hold up and force you to have to hold the ball in your hands, allowing our guys up front to eat and do what they got to do. But this offense, to me, ladies and gentlemen, needs to be the number one priority for the Atlanta Falcons. 2 games, we scored 30 points out of 17 games. The first 17-game season in the NFL, we only scored 30 points in 2 games, ladies and gentlemen. You know how many 30-plus points games we had in 2016? 9. In 5 of those 9 games, we scored over 40 points. And when we needed to hold up in a shootout, we were able to do it. And you got these teams that you're going to be playing against, the Los Angeles Chargers, who can score points over there, led by Justin Herbert. You got the Baltimore Ravens. Once these guys get healthy and them running backs come back, and you got Lamar Jackson, and he comes back, and they are healthy, they're going to be able to put up points on the Atlanta Falcons. The 49ers, I believe we have to play them again. You got the Los Angeles Rams, we're going to have to play them. And both of these teams are in the playoffs right now that are going to be playing this Sunday, as a matter of fact. And they can score points. And we're going to have to be able to hold up with some of those teams when our defense is not going to be able to do it. I just don't see us being able to build that defense that you guys are looking for overnight. I just don't see it. I think it's going to take a little bit more time to be able to collect the data, to be able to figure out how to build that type of defense. And I know you're going to say, Toby, Terry Fontenot, he helped build the defense over there in New Orleans. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is probably not going to happen here. And it took some time for them to be able to build that defense over there in New Orleans, too. It did not happen overnight. They had to go through about 4 seasons of 7 and 9 before they can get to that defense, which allowed them to be able to draft high, for one, and to sign the players that they needed in free agency, value free agent picks, that is, because they didn't spend a lot of money trying to get guys over there. They drafted well and develop those guys, and we're going to have to do that. And I think we're going to need at least a couple more drafts even after this one to be able to build that defense the way that you guys would like for it to be built. Don't get me wrong, I would love for it to be built too, but I think the offense is the way to go, and I believe you can get the offense in a place you want it right now, as opposed to trying to build the defense to get you 40 sacks in a season. Hey, man, other than that, man, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. We got a lot of stuff going on, JR and myself. It is draft time, and we're talking a lot of draft prospects. We have a lot going up on our site daily at p4patl.com. Go over there and check that out, man. We got a bunch of guys over there, and we covering all the position groups, from cornerback, safety, wide receivers, D-line, offensive line, running backs. It doesn't matter. It's over there for you guys to check it out. It will also be in the description, the website, so you can hit that link and go check out some of these prospects and see what we think about it. Hey, Senior Bowl's coming up. Lord willing, JR and myself will be there, and we will be hitting the ground running, looking at a lot of these prospects up close and in person. Other than that, hey, please comment. Let me know what you think. You totally disagree, that's fine. I would love to still have your comments down there anyway. Or you do agree and you have some ideas on how you believe the Falcons need to roll to build an offense. I want to hear it. Other than that, this is the Atlanta Falcons Think Tank, the first edition, 2022. I'm Toby D. Peace. I'm out.